as I was kind of walking down the cobbled streets and just looking at all of the architecture, architecture.
Yes.
Why does it sound so weird? All right, I am back from Italy. Oh my gosh, I had an amazing time, and thank you for coming on the journey with me. We're gonna do a lot more travel vlogs, and we're gonna do a lot more traveling. So subscribe, like this video, ask me questions, but also ring that bell so that you can get notifications when we go other places. I learned a lot from being in Florence for 2 weeks, and I was thinking about this because if you followed the videos, as you can hear, I'm kind of still a little bit sick. I was sick for 2 weeks. So I kind of got stuck in Florence. Instead of doing all these day trips, which is what I had planned, I really lived in Florence for 2 weeks and didn't go much outside of Florence. So it was kind of a blessing. I feel very grateful because I learned a lot from just being there. One of the things I was really thinking about as I'm walking through Florence, I did a lot of walking, I'm looking at these buildings everywhere, and they're such rich history, but also they're so beautiful. The architecture is just amazing. And I had to stop and think about, like, what am I feeling? What am I learning from this? And part of it was the reverence for art in Italy and in Florence, especially Florence because it's the birthplace of Renaissance and art and all of that stuff. And it's just, the reverence for art is unbelievable. Buildings and the beauty and the time it takes to build all these buildings, but the statues, like, everywhere. The cobbled streets are beautiful, but the importance of art and the museums and the artists that lived there and worked there, and the amount of support that they gave their artists, and having patrons like the Medici family, which you can read all about. Fascinating. Not saying they're all great, but the foresight that they had that art was so important, and to infuse Florence, of like, Florence is gonna be this city filled with art, and people are gonna come here and it's gonna change them and inspire them. But it has that feel today. And coming from the States and being an artist, you know, people are like, well, have plan B. It's great that you do art, you're never gonna make a living at it. Like, there's just, oh, it's a nice hobby. It's so nice. But like, you gotta be on Wall Street, you gotta be a corporate person, like, that's where, you know. But that's just not the feeling when you go to Florence of, like, artists and art is life. And the inspiration and the change, the importance placed on art is almost above everything else, because they understand that that is sort of the breath of life, is art. And it comes in so many forms, whether it's, you know, whether it's painting, a different kind of paintings, whether it is all these gorgeous buildings, like the outsides, the insides, the floor of the Duomo, and the marble on the floor is art. Like, everywhere you look, and these fountains, and the amount of time it takes for Michelangelo to sculpt the David, like, the time, the money, and the importance placed on art, and that really is part of life, and it's an important part of life, is just so overwhelming in Florence. And I really want to take some of that back with me. Obviously, I'm an artist, so I feel really strongly about art in general. But I really want us to have a shift in this country about how important art really is to our lives. And it was wonderful being immersed in that for 2 weeks. One of the other things that I loved, and one of my favorite tours, was the boat tour. You know, I was in love with the Arno and the bridges and everything, but when I took my boat tour, the woman tour guide just loved the stuff that she was talking about, and she loved the history of Florence. And when you do a deep dive into history, you never find all good. Like, there's some crazy crap that happens in history, right? But it really felt like they owned their history, and all of it was good in the sense that it was, they learned from it, and maybe these people were bad, but there's this gorgeous building that came out of it. But there was no trying to hide any of their history. It was real ownership of all of the different things that made up Florence, and why Florence is the way it is today. And I'm thinking more of that now, because I feel like in America there is this, like, trying to only tell bits of our history, And all of history is not good, but owning all of it makes us who we are. And there really is this feel in Florence of like, this is who we are, and this is what happened in the past, and this was kind of crappy, and this was actually pretty awesome, but this was pretty terrible. But like, all of these things makes up everything you see and everything you experience. And that's a good thing. And we can take ownership of like, that was really crappy when that happened in Italy, and like, we're not proud of that, but that is our history. So we're gonna own it. And so there was just this beautiful ownership of history that came out in the tour guides, and just you feel that when you're there, that I wish that we had more of here. I think one of the other things that I learned is that it's okay to indulge sometimes. Not indulge all the time, but I really like allowed myself for the 2 weeks to like, if I want a chocolate croissant every morning, I'm gonna do it. Like, I don't do that in my life back here, but there's so much art involved in the food making. Like, everybody talks about Italian food, and they're not wrong. So good. And you can't, and even Italians, like they say, like, we don't eat like this every day, like the food that's at the restaurants, because it's so rich. But the amount of time and art and like artistry that goes into food, and how important food is just so much fun to indulge in and to experience. Because like, the food of Italy, like, that is just, I mean, people go there specifically just for the food, but it is an experience, it is an art form, it is something that like inspires you. So it was good to be able to like indulge sometimes and experience that and not feel guilty or whatever. And it's not like I could eat like that all the time, but being in that space to be like, their food just felt like a gift, you know, in that way. And to be able to really take it in like that and experience like that was really fun. And then now thinking about like, how can I indulge in my own life, not like eating like crazy or whatever, but like, what things can I experience and take as a gift and then indulge in here and there that can bring joy to my life. Speaking of plans, this was a really stressful time for me, but it was fascinating. So like, on the last day, and if you watch my last video of me trying to get out of Florence, oh my god, it was insane. But I learned something. So I had to get to the airport by like 10 o'clock. So at like 8 o'clock, because everybody's like, taxis are a little hard to get in Florence. It's not like New York. So I'm like, okay, well, 2 hours before I really need a taxi, I'll just start. Like, I'll just be proactive. And I had a lot of bags, so I couldn't like I couldn't go to the bus station and take a bus or the train station. So there's a taxi app. So I go on the taxi app, I try and order a taxi. App takes forever to load and do all that stuff. And then eventually it just comes back, no, none are available right now. Try again later. So this happens like 3 to 4 times. So then I call, there's a number to call, and people are like, call this number. So I call the number, and then please hold, and I'm like, okay, finally. And someone comes back on, I'm like, oh, finally. And they're like, oh, sorry, no taxis right now. I'm like, oh my god. So, and they don't like, they're like, just try again later. Click. And I was like, anyway, so watch the video, you'll find out how I eventually got to the airport. But my thought was later is like, my plans are not more important than theirs. And it's a really, like, as an American, I have to admit, like, it's like, well, if I need a taxi, there should be a taxi for me, right? Like, that's kind of how we feel. And it's a different country and a different way, and they have a certain amount of taxis, and they're doing what they're doing, and like, I get that you have a problem and an issue and a need, but you know what, that's not my need, and I don't need to fill it. And it made me be creative, and I got to the airport just in time. But it was a really wonderful thing to kind of take in, because I think as Americans, and when we travel, we just expect to get what we want when we want it, you know? There's also something about the perspective of like, you know, you're not the only one in the city, and we are not going to tailor our lifestyle to fill your need. Like, you're gonna have to figure out our lifestyle and figure out how to make it work for you. But it was a stressful lesson, but I liked it. Okay, something else I noticed, and it happened from different places, but the place I noticed it the most was my favorite coffee shop. And I can't even tell you why it was my favorite coffee shop, because it was like this little small, I mean, it was around the corner. But it was this little small area, and I found kind of bigger, more interesting coffee shops, but this place a lot of Italians came to, and I like to just sit and listen to them chat. And most Italians, like if you go into a coffee shop in the morning, they don't give you coffee, first of all. You ask for a cafe and it's a cappuccino. But they stand. They basically stand, socialize, drink their cappuccino, maybe have a little, cornet, like it's a pastry, and then off they go. But there are two people that work there every morning. And the first 3 or 4 mornings, asking politely, not nicely, politely what I want, giving it to me. That's it. That's all they gave me, right? And then the Italians would come in, or people they would know, and just very chatty and really wonderful. And I was like, oh, okay, interesting. But the more I came, the more they got to know me. And by the end, we were like chit-chatting, see you tomorrow. Oh, she's an Americano, chocolate croissant, like they knew me. The thing I loved about it though, they were never fake. They were never fake friendly. They needed to get to know me to befriend me. I really like the fact that I had to earn their friendship, and everything that was said to me was very genuine and sincere, and it just felt, people were very content, very grounded in who they were as people. They wanted to meet you in a real, genuine place. So sometimes when you're in touristy towns, and let me be clear, Florence is very touristy, like there are so many people. It's all tourists, right? Except the people that live there. So, but it has a very different flavor, feel, because they don't have this customer mentality where like you have to keep the customer in the space, and you have to, they're right and you're wrong, and you have to do whatever it takes. It's more of like, this is my space. If you want something, I'll give it to you. If you hang out long enough and you invest yourself in me, I'll invest in you. I think that's what I love. Like, I had to invest like almost 12 days into this coffee shop, but then they started investing back in me, and there was just something really profound about that. I love the fact that at least my experiences were it was just really real. One of the other things that I learned from being in Florence is the idea of slowing down. It's not laziness, it's not work ethic, it's the idea of like life is passing us by if we don't slow down. And so it doesn't feel like there's an importance on the rat race. It doesn't feel like there's importance on you gotta get up at 6 a.m. and go, go, go until the end of the day. A lot of places close in the afternoon, so you can have your siesta, you can have your rest, you can slow down and enjoy your life. So the idea of slowing down, again, that goes into the art, like slowing down, and you look at the art and that slows you down. But there's just such an importance placed on self-care and being in the now and appreciating life that I think sometimes as Americans, like, and I'm like totally guilty. I'm so goal-oriented and like go, go, go. But then the week goes by and I'm like, oh my God, what happened? And like in Florence, and of course I'm on vacation, I get that, but I was just watching other people too that work there, and just the amount of time they take to talk to each other, socialize with each other, the amount of time they take in the afternoon. And of course this is not true, it's a tourist place, so not every place shuts down for those 2 hours, but the real Florentinian, those places that are run by the mom and pop shops and all of that, like they have set hours and they are closed in the afternoon, because there is still an importance placed on slowing down and enjoying your life. And that is such a gift, and it's so important for all of us. And I think we forget it because we're in the rat race and that's what America's about. But like, wouldn't it be amazing if we could slow down and enjoy our lives a lot more? This is kind of a little bit like that, but like one of the things that I learned, at least about myself, like being there for 2 weeks, and I was sick, so I couldn't have a plan. Like I couldn't like, I'm gonna go see this and this and this today. I was like, I don't know how much energy I have. I'm gonna go outside and walk. Downtown historical Florence is just gorgeous everywhere you go, right? So there's so many times that I didn't have a plan and I just walked, and like wherever the path would take me, I would just kind of wander. And I wasn't lost, I was just exploring without a plan. And at the end of the day, I would be like, that was an amazing day, and I found this to do, and I met this person, and I ended up in this shop. So I didn't like click off, like everybody's like, see this thing, make sure you go to this gelato place, make sure you do this. And it was just a slower day, relaxed, and allowing myself to like turn the corner and then see this amazing, huge building, and then having to look up like, okay, this is like a big historic building, I need to learn about it, hey, maybe I'll go in there. So just the idea again of like slowing down, not always having a plan. Of course, it's important to have a plan sometimes, but it is also okay not to have a plan all the time and just experience life and see where that kind of takes you. And a lot of that happened to me in Florence, and it was pretty magical. I think this kind of goes with like the slowing down of things, but it's like the taking of time with things, like with food. Like you have to sit and wait for them to make your pasta, right? So it's not a chain, it's not frozen, and they don't like boom boom and they bring it out to you. Like there's a time, and part of that is the experience. You go into these like gorgeous paper shops. This woman really explained like how they make these gorgeous pieces of paper, but they make them by hand, and it takes time. And yes, you have to pay for that time. You have to pay the expense, but it's worth it because the artistry of them taking their time and making it right, and making it original, and making it specifically for you. Whether it's food, whether it's like the paper, whether it's like specific Italian leather. Like there was a difference between like the leather market and all these, I mean, they're all gorgeous, but all these cheaper leather purses, and the purses in some of these shops that you knew, gotta pay for them, but they take a lot more time, and the quality is so different because the leather they use is different, but also the amount of time that goes into making a particular item takes a lot longer. If you go into the art shops, oh my gosh, I met this amazing artist in his art shop, and he was showing me how he's painting and doing these things. The amount of time that he has to take to create this amazing, beautiful picture, but you have to do it. So I don't know, like the idea that I came away with, I guess, is just like taking time to make something of quality is important. Are there times where yes, like, okay, we just like fast is good, we gotta do fast because we gotta move on, but there's something really to be said of like stepping back, slowing down, and waiting for something of quality, or making something of quality, and that's really important. So this one I was thinking about for a while because the importance on beauty and on appearance is important, but not in the way that we do it. So it's more like real beauty and taking the time to take care of yourself, like you're like dressing up and wearing nice clothing, and not fast fashion, but clothing that's made well for your body. So taking care of yourself, and real beauty, not like Botox and changing your face, but like allowing people to see the real you. And just like, even, you know, like fashion is a big thing in Florence. Like, I mean, I was blown away by all of these shops, but beauty and the quality of things is really important. But it was just such a different feel than, I guess I feel like maybe the plastic beauty that sometimes America kind of reveres. There was something about a genuine, real beauty, and there were these older Italian women, and maybe by American standards they weren't gorgeous, but the way they took pride in the way they dressed, and the way they spoke, and the way they did their hair, and just their gravitas was so beautiful. So there's just, I think, this bigger sense of beauty that's important, but it's a real beauty that comes out, and it's a real quality taking of time, and like the taking of time even with our bodies, and like how beautiful we look after time. There was just something really profound about how they viewed beauty in everything that I'm still sort of processing and taking with me, but it was really, really interesting to appreciate how much they appreciated real beauty. So it was a lot. It was a lot that I took from 2 weeks of really being there and living, I mean, not really, you know, but living as much as I could in Florence and trying to experience their values and their life lessons. And I'm still processing, but I think we can, that's why I think we should all travel as much as we can, because the perspective we get is so important. So please, like, subscribe, because we're going to travel as much as we can and do this as much as we can, because I think it's important. And this Sunday I'm going to do a live. So our final wrap up is actually going to be a live where I talk about sort of my transformation in Tuscany and the reason I went, and this workshop that I took, and these huge life lessons. So I shared with you amazing things right now that I learned, but there's a much bigger picture, more well, yeah, I'm gonna get some information about my life. Like, it's some heavy duty, interesting transformation that took place. So we want to do this as a live this Sunday because I want you to be there with me so I can really talk to you about it, and then you can ask me any questions that you want. So I want to kind of do this together. So our final wrap up will be Sunday during the live, but I also wanted to share with you, like, just the beautiful gifts that Florence gave me just being there. So I hope that this helps you, and comment, like, subscribe, like, come join us on this journey together where we're gonna travel and learn from the world and have a lot more joy in our life.